publishing side project during your PhD. Today we are here with Lars-Erik Casper Ferm. Hello, Lars. How are you doing?
Not too bad, Park. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. So first of all, let me ask you, what made you like to do or wanting to do a side project during your PhD?
So mainly during my PhD, I focus on side projects because obviously, number one, we want to get a job, right? So any PhD student will be most likely doing side projects at this point because if you have more publications, the chance of you at least being shortlisted will be higher. So that was one of the reasons. But another one of the predominant reasons is because I wanted to learn a lot more new things. So for example, in our PhD, as PhD students, we're normally pigeonholed into what we can do. So for example, we might be, because we're doing something brand new, we might be focusing on conceptual stuff, or we might be focusing on qualitative ways of thinking, right? So because my experience in any type of publishing was predominantly structural equation modeling, before coming into my PhD, I thought, you know what, I need to find different methodologies and to improve my skills and knowledge in that way. And so side projects were the way to go.
Learning by doing.
That's it. That's it. And so that's how I kind of got into learning about experiments through these side projects, but not just via learning about experiments. I learned about data analysis, data cleaning, importantly, conceptualizing, coming up with ideas, building different models, and really improving how I think about things in marketing research. And so side projects really help me understand that. And I think on another front is in our PhD, our topic can be super theoretical. It can be super specific, right? And like 5 people will understand it to some degree. But on side projects, you can experience different things. So for example, influencer research, disinformation, all these different things that you can do. So really, side projects boil down to I was curious and I wanted to learn a lot of new things, new ways of doing things, and new ways of thinking. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the motivation.
Yeah, I think you touched very good point in terms of trying something new, try new methodology, try new
Mm.
area, collaboration aspect. But when is it a good time to do a side project like this? I mean, should it be like year one or which year of your PhD you think you should consider this?
So with your PhD, it should still always be the focus because your PhD is, as they tell us, your contribution to knowledge. If we all know that little circle, everything that's known, and then you're the little bump, right? That's what you're doing. So to do that in a PhD, you have to know your stuff. So I think that in that time, you really need that first year to come up with that thinking. So for me, in my PhD, what really helped was thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking about it until I got to a point where, hang on, no one's spoken about this thing that everyone mentions happens, but we don't know what it is. And so I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't use time. So I think when it comes to side projects, I think you have to be settled in to your topic. You have to
Yeah.
be very familiar with it before doing side projects, because then you might start doing a side project and doing your PhD in the beginning and start thinking, oh, I'm going to use this idea in my PhD or that idea. And then you start doing too much, it becomes too complicated, and you can't do everything. So I think saving it for maybe the second and third year onwards is kind of the way to go.
Hmm.
Maybe personally, individually, but if you want to do it as a group, maybe it's different, but I think save it for later.
Yeah, okay. So when it's come to the people that you will be working with, like who do you normally working with, and then how do you meet those people for your side project?
So initially, I work with yours truly a lot since my master's. And so through Park, I've met a lot of different people. But then as time goes on and I work with people and I hopefully demonstrate that I'm able to add value to a project to some degree, I'll let others determine if there is value. But they begin to recommend you to others, and then they begin to want to work with you. So when it comes to working with people, it's kind of like one person links to many, and then those people link to others. So from a qualitative research perspective, was it snowball sampling? So it's like snowball side projects,
Yeah.
if you think of it like that.
Okay. So these people, say from your university, with your supervisor, your friends that you know, have you come across like I know that you have been to a few international conferences. Like, have you met any friends there and then continue as a project?
Yes. So interestingly, what's happened is I've been to two conferences, both ANZMAC. One was in Perth and the other was in Dunedin recently. And I met a lot of different PhD students there. And I'm starting to work with a lot of PhD students doing just some side projects there. So for example, I recently wrote a encyclopedia entry with another PhD student, currently going through the process of experimental design with another group of PhD students. And so at these conferences, I felt it wasn't just about meeting the big names. It was also about meeting your future co-workers, your future colleagues, because these are the people who will be following you for the rest of your life, so to speak. So I think
Very good point there.
getting that collaborative process now and these side projects, no matter what they are, obviously with the bigger people, you're going to get better things, but with your friends and all that, can be very really great. So I've also been working with some people, PhD students.
Now, when you talk about side project, normally when you work, it sounds to me like you're working on a number of side projects at the moment. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming that some of them you have permission to do it from your
Mm.
supervisor or from your school. Uh, Now, how do you manage your time? Because a lot of us in year one or year two, we already full on with, say, the thesis itself, the PhD.
Mm.
So how do you manage your time above your, say, teaching, if you have any research assistant, and then now you have side project? How do you
Yeah.
manage your time?
Well, there's pros and cons, obviously, to side projects. So as I mentioned, you can diversify and improve your skills and knowledge. You meet new people, you network, right? That's where they're so great. But the cons are, as you mentioned, time management. So for me, this was initially a struggle because each semester, since I think the second year in particular, I've been teaching like 5 courses a semester. Sorry,
That is a lot.
5 classes.
Oh,
That's
okay.
yeah, it's a bit.
Yes, but
Five,
still a lot.
5 or so per semester, and then I did a bit of coordination in between.
Yes,
Taught at two different unis as well. So
yes.
time is definitely short in that regard, and I've only beginning now to really learn what works for me.
Mm,
And so what ended up working for me in terms of time management to allow me to manage these side projects, because you want to learn all the time, but you only have 24 hours in a day, as they say. But what really helped for me is, I'm sure we've all done it. We got stuck on something and we just don't know how to move forward. And it's like your brain's just running in circles. And so what happens is either I just focus and work on something else, and then I can eventually come back to it, or I go for a walk with my partner or something. And what happens is, if I can mentally check things off, it frees up that um, stagnated feeling and allows me to manage my time better. Because
mm.
if I can do the little things while focusing on something else, do the little things, come back to it, my mind will be refreshed because I don't have that cognitive load, so to speak. So I think that's kind of what helped me manage time, and I'm slowly beginning to learn that's how I work.
Yes, all right. That is a very important aspect. Now, let me ask you one last question. Um, so what would be that one tips that you might want to give?
In terms of side projects,
Yes,
I would
during your PhD.
say I would say be open to them. Don't be picky in the projects you do. Don't think, oh, it's not related to my PhD, because everything I've done has actually improved my PhD, even if it's a topic totally unrelated, because I've had a lot of carryover skills that have made me better, well-rounded, in my opinion, researcher than I was before. Even, for example, learning that publication process has helped. Before, it was petrifying to submit a paper to a journal. Now it's like still petrifying, but I deal with it. I can do it
Yes.
much better, right? And talking to people, organizing things, emailing. It's not just about publishing. Sometimes it's about learning these soft skills and
Yes.
also the hard
Just
skills.
to be clear, does that mean you? Okay, just want to be clear that you're not saying that you will accept every single invitation to
No,
do
of
a side
course not.
project, right?
Of course not. I just meant don't say no to things because you don't think it's part of what you're
Okay,
doing. Be
perfect.
open to different things. Of course, don't say yes to everything. Like for me, maybe said yes to too much teaching, for example, sometimes, but same thing, right? Don't say no because it's not totally related. Be open to it because there will be some what's the word? Overlap with what you do in some degree.
Okay, sure. Now, let's say if you were in your experience,
Mhm.
like when is the best time to start doing a side project? You have mentioned earlier about start when you know your topic of your PhD.
Mm.
Do you think that is there a specific time that you is good to start a side track project, like a side project?
Um, so the first sidetrack project I really began um, was about a year into my PhD.
Mm,
And during my PhD conceptualization, so before the confirmation, I started to think, hey, I want to do experiments, but I can't really do it now. I want to learn it for down the track when I need to do it. And so that's when I started doing side projects. I did some book chapters as well, which really helped me come up with ideas and different models to explain processes. There wasn't exactly data in there, but it's conceptual. And that helped me as well in my PhD. So I think one way you can think of it is if you have an idea for what you want to do in your PhD, you can do side projects that will relate to that methodology, relate to what you're doing per se. So like I mentioned before, it
sure.
might not be related to the topic, but the skills you learn from them, you can translate over. So that's maybe one way of
Mm.
knowing when to start because you want to learn to do something. So it's perfect when you do
Yes.
it in your
I know that I have
PhD.
said one last question before, but something just popped up in my head. Let me ask you this one. Have you ever feel regret that you start a side project?
Yes, once, or not once, but yes. Because sometimes if you're working, it just nothing works. So the
Yeah.
data might not be telling you what it wants to, the stimuli might not be working as it's supposed to. But honestly, that's when you learn the most.
Mm,
That's when you learn what works and how to improve, because that's going to happen regardless of when it is.
mm,
Well, in sorry, not when it is, but what you're doing. It's always going to fail. So I
yes.
think knowing that before the big paper you're doing and with the little ones, the little side projects will actually help you manage it down the track, which has totally helped
That's
what
right.
I've done. I've had a few dud databases and bad stimuli, and I like to think I don't
Mm,
have as much problems with that as I used to. So
And it's forced you to find a solution to your the problem
exactly.
you're facing as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have, share with us a lot of insight there. So this is publishing side project during a PhD with Lars. Thank you so much, Lars, for your time today.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.